Hi guys, welcome to the explanation for PT 31 Game 4. This is a pretty tricky one. The hardest part might be how to classify it. Is it ordering? Is it, overbalanced ordering where we have too many pieces? Is it kind of a grouping ordering combination? I think there's a lot of different ways to conceptualize this, but the really important thing to do is make sure you're on top of the most fundamental task here, which is just that we've got 5 tasks. We're doing them in order over the course of 3 days. And this is really what you're concerned about ordering here, these tasks. So what are they? We've got F, W, T, S, and P, and then we've got people that can do each of these tasks. And when you see something like this, generally all it is kind of a complicated indirect way of giving you the rules for when these things can get done, what order. But here, I think the best thing to do is they basically give you a diagram for keeping track of this. So you're going to want to get that down onto your paper as well. We know who can do all of these things. But since these tasks here are in order, I'm going to want to preserve that order, so that I have that diagram. And then I'll just write who can do each of these tasks. So for F, it's Inga and Kelly. For W, it's L and O. For T, it's G and L. And then for S, we've got H, K, and M. And then H, I, and O for the last thing. Okay, so what we end up with here then is, okay, we've got these 3 days, and we've got to do each of these 5 tasks, and it might be that there's more than one task on each day. In fact, you're going to have some days with more than one task on each day to fit 5 into 3. And then we're told at least one task is done each day. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, well, that means F has to be on day 1. And we know that within that day, F is going to be the first thing, right? So there is actually an order within these days, which is kind of what makes this feel a little like a grouping game. But we don't know yet who else is even going in there with 1. We just know F's definitely going to be in there. And then same logic here, because we have to fill each days and P is the last task, that means P is definitely going on day 3. And, they're going to be at the end. And there might be somebody else in there with them, but we're not sure yet. And when I saw this, and then I took a quick look at the other rules, okay, taping and priming have to be on different days, so you can never see those two together. Basically T, then not P, and vice versa. When I saw that, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe there's just not really that many scenarios possible for this game. Taping's going to have to be either on day 2 or on day 1. So I wanted to build out scenarios around those 2 possibilities. So let's say taping's done on day 1. Well, then we're going to have an order of FWT here. We need S to be on day 2 because it's the only thing that can go there, and then P will be on day 3. In contrast, in this next scenario, we've got a lot more flexibility, right? W could be on either day 1 or day 2, and same with S, it can be either on day 2 or day 4. So if you wanted to break it out further into scenarios, let's do that. So in our first 2 scenarios, we can have W on day 1, and then we'll do the 2 locations of S. We can have it after T here. And then on the same day as P here. And then we just put W on the second day, and again have the same thing, right? The 2 locations of S. We could have S here, and then we could have S here. So that's it. That's really all the possible orders of these things for the game. And then it'd be pretty easy to figure out who can be on these days as well, right? Here you would have the possibility of I and K, L and O, G and L, H, K, or M, H, I, or O. And I don't really know that you need to fill all that in. If you feel like it helps you later on, you can always do it. But at this point, I'm just feeling ready to jump in and solve these questions. Let's just label these scenarios quickly. This could be scenario 1. Here's the ones with wallboarding and F just in one, so we can call this number 2A and 2B. And then we could call this 3A and 3B. That's kind of arbitrary picking that, but just keeping things straight so we can talk about them easily. Okay, so for 19, we really don't need any of our diagrams to solve this one. You're just going to take your rules and look at them one at a time. For example, you need somebody who can do each of these tasks. So I'm looking at these orders and I'm like, do I see one where there's no Inga and Kelly? That would be a big problem, right? Yeah, and then E, there's no I or K, so nobody's there to do F. And just working by that process, you're going to eliminate these and end up with B. Okay, for 20, we've got a new requirement that the installation is going to take 3 days and the same 2 crew members work on the first and third days. Well, one of the rules that I'm not sure I mentioned yet is that each task is done by exactly 1 worker and it's completed the day it started before the next task begins, right? So the only way we're going to be able to do this is if we are working in this scenario down here. So then we can see right away who might be able to do these 2 tasks on day 1 and 3. Okay, so I and K, L, O, then H, K, M, H, I, O. So who do we see that's both here? Okay, well, K and O could be doing these 2 tasks. So let's look for that in the answer choices, and there it is, right there in D. So that was an instance where I think having the scenarios written out was super easy. This is the only scenario where we can have this thing with getting 2 people working on both day 1 and day 3. Okay, 21's kind of like an acceptability question, so I'm just going to do the same process of seeing where they might be violating all these conditions up here. So like, do I see an answer that doesn't have I and K? No, they all have either I or K, so somebody can do wallboarding. How about W? Does it all of them have at least L and O? No, A does not. So that could not be the members of the crew, and it's our right answer. So I just basically did this like an acceptability question. Okay, for 22, installation takes 3 days. Sanding is done on the 3rd day. So we can get rid of this, we can get rid of this, we can get rid of this. We're just working in this scenario and this scenario. So if we want to do our IK thing again, figure out who has to be on that day, maybe that'll help. So we just need who could work on the 2nd day. Well, we've got G and L here, and then again G and L, and then L and O. So could it just be Inga on day 2? No. How about just Kelly? No, we don't even see Kelly on day 2. How about Olaf? Yeah, you do see Olaf, but on the day where Olaf can be in there, there needs to be somebody else that day. So that's out too. How about George and Helena? No, you never see Helena in there. So we're left with E by default, Leander and Olaf. Yeah, that works right there. Sorry, I should be more clear that that's an L. Leander and Olaf could be, in this scenario, the crew on day 2. Okay, last question. Pair of crew members who work on the same days as each other and who perform 2 tasks. So this already feels like this question here where it was K and O. So I quickly look and see if K and O is a possible answer choice. It's unlikely, but just in case the LSAT wants to mess with us. But it's not, right? So we gotta look for maybe another scenario where this could happen, that 2 people work the same days as each other. And I took a look right here, right? Now we have to do this little process again. I, K, L, O, G, L, and H, K, M. So who shares the 2 days here? Well, we see L here and here, and then we see K here and here. So it could be K and L, and that's our right answer. So this was the only other place this was possible. And we already used this one in another question, so it seemed logical to look over here. Pretty tough game. A lot easier, I think, with these scenarios, especially for question 23 and then the other one that related to having two people work on the same day. So I don't think it takes too long to make those scenarios, and that's a helpful way to maybe cut a little time and feel just a little more comfortable with the game. But as far as classifying this game, I still think it's difficult. It's a little bit like you first group things into the days and then worry about the order within those days. It also feels like you're kind of grouping these people into these days too, generally in terms of a lot of the questions. So I really do think it's kind of fair to call this game a combination game. And it's a hard one, so if you did well, give yourself a pat on the back. You'll be ready for any sort of strange ordering combination game situation that comes up a lot more ready now. All right, see you on the next game.